Going to be a fantastic night of panels. But real quick, just to introduce myself, I know I have a lot of friends out in the audience, but I have a lot of faces that I don't know, and I'd love to meet y'all. My name is Nabil Pervez, and in eSports, I go by Neptune. I'm an eSports shoutcaster. I think the thing that's really interesting is when it comes from who I am, I'm kind of a story of somebody who just started with nothing and kind of worked my way into a position where, I mean, I've shoutcasted events for Amazon, I've worked for Blizzard, I've casted for Red Bull and Gearbox. I'm one of the luckiest guys that I think out there, but I've also managed to find myself working in the industry more than just a shoutcaster, but also managing partnerships and helping teach people how to shoutcast. I finally found a way to take the passion that I have and turn it into something where when you combine that with business sense, you've taken that to a next level and you found something sustainable. I think that more than anything else, when your passion for something like esports comes from something genuine, where I started to shoutcast purely for the fact that I think esports is the coolest thing in the world and I just want to share this with everybody. When you have that passion and you fuel that with business sense, you really can go anywhere in this industry. So of course, that leads us to tonight. Speaking of fantastic business-minded individuals, people who have really excelled in the world of esports, we have a phenomenal panel for you guys tonight. We are going to be having Scott Beckman, founder and partner at Beckmen Law Firm. He works in esports teams around the country and is one of DFW's most informed guys on esports the esports regulation environment. We will have Gary Brubaker, director of SMU Guild Hall. Gary runs one of the most prestigious graduate programs in the world for video game development. Trust me, I've met their students. They're incredible. I've worked with them before. They're amazing folks, and the campus is incredible. Ryan Musselman, Chief Operating Officer of OpTic Gaming. OpTic Gaming is an industry-defining esports media and entertainment platform. They are widely known for its hyper-engaged global community and success across multiple esports titles. Of course, you'll see that they recently just pulled on a Dota team, including of a former international champion, PPD. It's nuts, and these guys just located into Dallas. And of course, we'll have Stephen Hayes. Stephen is the managing partner of Deep Space Ventures, a Dallas-based VC firm investing in early-stage startups. Prior to Deep Space, Stephen spent 6 years as an investment banker. Stephen and his firm are one of the most active investors in esports. So please, let's have a round of applause for our panel. Now, also, let me introduce our moderators for this evening. We have Jason Sigmund. Jason is the founder of Artinic, a local startup that connects mentors with career opportunities. He's a longtime fan of esports and writes about the business of esports. Jason will field our audience questions tonight. So anything that you guys want to talk about, Jason will be your guy, and he'll be helping field your questions right here in the yellow shirt. Now, we will also have Brian Dick. Brian is the co-founder and CEO of LaunchPad City, the building that we are currently housed in tonight. Now, let me turn things over to Brian, and we'll get everything started. Thank you guys all for coming out.
Welcome. LaunchPad City is really something that Nihi Giga and myself started idea-wise about a year ago. And it really started from the opportunity to say what's an underserved opportunity in the City of Frisco to provide some give back, pay it forward. Both of us are entrepreneurs. Both have invested and started and exited several businesses. And we said, how can we take that experience and knowledge and pass it forward? And so the idea of LaunchPad City came out. We went and on the path to build a building in the very beginning of it. But one of the things that happened along the way was that we sold our vision of building this building for innovation, for connections, for creating a true entrepreneurial center here in Frisco. The Frisco EDC in the city came to us and said, wait a second, we have a building, we have a potential opportunity. Would you guys consider coming here and building what you're talking about? we took that challenge and started this in March of this year. So we've only been here about 6 months. Currently in this building there are 37 companies, about 150 people work here. Companies ranging in size from a single entrepreneur to companies as large as 20, 25 people. And one of our visions for this building is to slowly turn this into a sports and sports tech, an eSports tech incubation center and innovation center. And so as our vision started to develop, we started meeting a lot of people. And one of the people in this room is Chris Cheney, who came to us and told us about eSports. And quite honestly, I'll raise my hand and be the first one to say, I didn't really know a whole lot about it. But as we dug into it, we saw this opportunity that really mirrors traditional sports and business. And so we said, you know what, let's do some more research. And so as we researched, we saw more and more that the things that make traditional sports so popular and such a great business opportunity exist in esports. So we did additional research and found, look, there's no one in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that's really kind of planted their flag and said, this is, this is going to be esports. And so as we started talking to the city leadership and this vision, it aligned perfectly with the Sports City USA that Frisco is now branded as, because this truly is now becoming part of that traditional sports stream. And so from that standpoint, this day and this moment has really been a year in the making with lots of meetings, lots of research, and probably half of you in the room are probably here because you don't believe it or you don't understand it, but you kind of think you do. And that's where we were at a year ago. And so hopefully today is kind of walk you through the journey that we've gone through the last year, hopefully the next hour. And so we have put together here, I say, one of the most powerful panels probably in the nation. And guess what? All these guys are from Dallas-Fort Worth. And so as we look across the room and see, Ryan from OpTic, and for those, and I'm speaking outside the esports professionals and knowledgeable people here, the equivalent for those of you of the Dallas Cowboys in Call of Duty and Counter-Strike and the MLG side of it. You're sitting here with Stephen Hayes, who, again, from his bio, investment banker by day, highly educated person, New York, investment banker, the three-piece suit, the whole thing, decided to go in the direction and invest, probably one of the biggest investors, certainly in esports in the entire country. So you see that. Then you see Gary in his program, and one of the questions I can't wait to understand is, this is the most highly regarded video game development curriculum and academy in the country here at SMU. Again, vision, thought process, and really the need for that, so can't wait to hear that. And then Scott and his partners, Mr. Crystal, if you guys don't know them, two of the most foremost experts in the regulatory landscape of esports. So to sit here and say, we have this building, we have city support, we have the vision, and then to put a panel like this together, it's amazing to be here in this short time. So thank you for all joining. The goal here, again, is to kind of walk you through the journey of both the business side, catch you up on esports statistics, how big the industry is, things like that. So encourage all the questions. We try to put together a very diverse group here. And so with that, we'll kick it off. And Jason, I know you got an opening question for the group.
Yeah, so we're going to hold on that for just a second. First of all, I'll kind of echo on that. Thank you guys so much for coming out to this event. This is really kind of a mix of, players, community, public sector, and we think that's really what makes this unique. So I'd really challenge you, if this is your first time in this space, don't leave here unless you've met at least 2 people. I also know a few of you express an interest in meeting someone on this stage. Make sure you do that. They're gracious enough with their time coming out here. Take advantage of that. For some of you don't know when you'll have a chance to see them again. If you're kind of posting something on Snapchat, you're going live, please use the hashtag eSportsFrisco. We really want to bring more awareness of this. This is going to be the start of hopefully a series of events. If there's something you want to see in the future, come find myself or Ked, who's in the back. We're going to try to organize some of these. And with that, I will start off with the first question. Where do you guys see esports being right now, both as a whole and then specifically kind of in your subsector?
Started off nice. With us right now, on the legal side, we are looking at a lot of regulatory issues, a lot of contract issues. Right now it's basically the Wild West, and so what we're trying to do is help anybody, investors, teams, merchandise people, advertising, basically understand the industry as much as we can, That way, as the regulatory field gets going and some of those contracts are developed over time, it makes it a more powerful industry. Problem is, it's grown so much so quickly that we're just playing catch up, and so now we're trying to find those intricacies and just help everybody out as much as we can. I think at this point, right now, on the legal side, it's just educating enough people in the industry to get them familiar with it and get them involved.
I guess we'll just go down the line. So, it's an interesting question. In one way, I think we are very much at the beginning. There are a lot of questions that I don't think anybody has the answer to that we're all very eager to find out. But on the other hand, it is a fairly mature market. It's one of the statistics I throw out that's just easy to put your arms around is more people watch eSports than traditional sports. Now, because they watch typically at home on their computer, on their iPad, or on their phone, not in big stadiums, we don't see that as much. But it is already a big market, and it is here today, and people are involved, and people are excited about it. And so that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree with what these guys have said. I love this space. I love playing games. I love investing in businesses around the esports space. I love watching streamers. A recent industry research note says there's almost 400 million people in this world that either play or watch video games. But nobody on my street has ever heard of Twitch. They don't know who OpTic is. They're just not engaged. And so what I see is an opportunity where there's this ecosystem that's huge. There's super high engagement in it. I know that when I get on and play PUBG, I can't put it down for 6 to 8 hours at a time, and no one's really monetizing that. There's also research out there that shows that the NBA, whose Game 7 of last year's finals didn't come anywhere close to getting as many eyeballs as League of Legends did last year. The NBA monetizes its fans at about $15 a person per year. In the esports space, esports as a whole monetizes its fan base at about $2 a person per year. It's like $1.83 or something like that, which is just absurd. So for me as an investor, the opportunity in a gigantic market, 400 million people, with super high engagement, people playing 4, 6, 8 hours a day, or watching streams for that amount of time, and under monetization of those folks, it's a recipe for an opportunity at the early stage to invest in founders who are attacking that space.
For us, OpTic Gaming on the team side, we're actually starting to see the sophistication of the space. So we look at it as, yes, we started out in the Wild West. We see the light at the end of the tunnel coming with the different franchise leagues, the different organization. But the light at the end of the tunnel is really just kind of the sunrise to the next evolution of esports. So we started off grassroots recruiting just based on industry knowledge, whatever website was out there that was available to give you any data on any player at any time, and you use that as best to your knowledge as you can. But now we're starting to see more formalized contracts come through. We're starting to see leagues actually issue their own contracts that teams now need to abide by. We're starting to see more organization come into play, and it's helping us as organization owners to be able to manage our business more efficiently. And I think it's ultimately going to provide more opportunity to the players in a more transparent environment and allow us actually to better align with the different verticals that we're seeing across the board, from education to legal to investment. So it's no longer just about people coming into the space with money, it's about people coming into the space with money and vision and hierarchy, right, and management hands-on and a real knack for business development. On the OpTic side, we've been speaking with LPC for the past year. We met Chris Cheney through the LPC or vice versa. And ever since then, it's allowed us to really start thinking of the space in a whole new way as we look to develop our business. We're not just in esports, we're in content, we're in business development, we're in the financial side, the education side, the investment side, you name it. There's a lot that's going on, and we see this starting to mature actually from our end.
Good. And I'm going to keep the mic with Ryan with the first question. So let me paint a picture for you guys that have never been to an esports event. So our first exposure to OpTic and what is OpTic was in Las Vegas in December, where we walk into the Mandalay Bay Convention Center and are toured in by OpTic J, as he's known, not Ryan, as we have to correct ourselves all the time, like it's OpTic J, and Hector Rodriguez. And the rock star welcome, we couldn't walk 2 feet trying to get to the convention center without someone wanting a selfie or an autograph or, you know, hey, retweet me while you're speaking. I mean, it was an amazing experience to start out with. Open the doors, there are 15,000 fans watching 5-on-5 Call of Duty with concert-level speakers, video, audio, sportscasters, casters talking about the events, and everyone is wearing merchandise. And half of them are wearing OpTic merchandise, by the way. But there's G Fuel, which is their kind of version of Gatorade energy drink. There's sponsorship, engagement, boost. There's all kinds of things. And he then looked at us and said, okay, this is not only a phenomenon, or this is not just kids. This is a true business opportunity. So, first kind of question is, paint the life of an eSports athlete, a guy like Skunk or M6, or walk me through his day, how he lives, his exposure, and not, let's go for the professional side of things. But I mean, just from the cars they drive, to the exposure that they have, to the business acumen that they have to build it as well, and their focus on content. So kind of paint a picture of some of your athletes.
Absolutely. So being endemic to the space, when I used to work at Google, we'd speak at these large conferences. Maybe some of you have heard of them, Penny Arcade Expo, otherwise known as PAX, among many out there. And I have parents that come up to me and would ask and kind of frame the same question that Brian just asked, saying, hey, my son or my daughter wants to be in eSports and I can't get them off the computer. How do I get them off the computer, right? And our response was like, well, don't. Keep them there. Because in creating content or in participating in eSports, you're learning how to be an entrepreneur in a very hyper-focused industry, one that they really, really care about. So they're learning how to develop a programming schedule on YouTube. They're learning how to build rapport in terms of their audience. They're learning how to negotiate contracts, how to negotiate sponsorship agreements, right? They're learning how to pick the right team, the right teammates. You name it. They're being coached into a whole new era of professionalism that they otherwise wouldn't have been exposed to. So to think that an esports professional or someone who's creating content that has an audience is someone really in their basement eating Hot Pockets and drinking Mountain Dew is actually really naive these days in the industry. Yeah, that's no longer true. I don't know if it was ever true, actually. I think it was just kind of perpetuated in one, like the perfect timing, right? Everybody just kind of bought into that. But the individuals now in esports, it's not just about hiring a player, it's about hiring a coaching staff. Because these players are going through rigorous training day in and day out. They're on nutrition plans, they're on exercise plans. They can get fined for not showing up to practice. They can get fined for missing a tournament. They can get fined for not tweeting out something about a sponsor. They can get fined for drinking a competitive sponsored drink when they're not drinking the right drink they're supposed to be drinking, right? We're sponsored by Brisk, so if someone's drinking Red Bull, that's a big problem for us because that sponsorship revenue is really important to how we fund the team and how we inject capital into the growth of our business. So their day in and day out really is hyper-focused on ensuring that their craft is perfected. And then it extends to their content creation, it extends to them building a brand, to selling merchandise. So their hands are full in learning how to be a full-blown professional. Some of them are really great at it, and some of them just want to drink beer and play Call of Duty, but we work with that, right? We're accustomed to adjusting to that type of stuff. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's just amazing, and to give it some perspective too, I mean, kind of talk about the social following of maybe your team and or some of your players as compared to probably traditional sports that we're all more accustomed to. I think that's the other amazing piece here, is their following.
Sure, absolutely. So their following, or to make it more simple, our following as OpTic Gaming as an organization is very large. We've outpaced on Twitter alone nearly all the traditional sports teams. If you were looking at the Dallas Cowboys, for example, we had beat them in terms of social following. We were at about 3 million, they were at 2.8. They recently passed us, I think they're about 3.3 million following. We're at about 3.1, so we think with our recent announcement into a new esport this past week, we'll catch them again. But It's pretty incredible. They are the new age celebrity, right? But they're not just the Brad Pitts who you see in a movie every now and then. They got to where we were from starting out on a couch as like a YMCA team to ultimately going to the main stage. So they're day in and day out in terms of the social following. It's all connected. Everything they do filters into them growing their brand as an individual.
Steve, I'll go next to you. If you could kind of explain, and I think it's sitting like you, obviously this is an investment banker, MBA guy, but kind of walk through due diligence-wise, because you're not just throwing money at these guys. Just because you're a fan, just because you're a player, just because you're passionate, you're not just writing checks because. So walk everybody through, especially there's probably some startups here that, what is an investor in esports, which is a rare thing first of all, but what are you looking for, and walk them through some of the due diligence.
Sure. As far as one quick note, as far as being a rare thing, there's actually 371 people that I've found that have invested in esports startups. Of those, 44 are venture capital firms or angel investors that have invested in more than one. So while we've probably invested in more than most, there's a lot of capital coming into this space right now. Some of our founders that are going out to raise right now, you'd be shocked at how easy it is to get capital. So it's all about finding the right capital. To your question, how do we diligence the startups? I'm a super early stage investor. The earliest stage esports investment we've made was literally a guy that tweeted at me about college football. He was a Big Ten fan, I'm an SEC fan, and we got in an argument about college football, and then he shared a house with me at South by Southwest last year, and then I funded him sight unseen on his business. That was kind of no diligence, if you will. So that's one end of the spectrum, and this guy's it'd be absolutely incredible. If you met this kid, you'd just be blown away by this individual. And you guys have met Delane. So then on the other end, there's just traditional early stage diligence. If it's a seed stage business, there's not going to be financials, okay? We're not going to be digging into your accounting software and trying to figure out a bunch of details about your numbers. It really comes down to the founder. What do we feel that this person can build an organization and run a business that's worth $1 billion? So the founder is 90 to 95% of it. Then we look at where are you attacking this space, and is it crowded in that area? We recently invested in a tournament platform. And the main reason that we almost didn't do it was because there's so many tournament platforms. There's a lot of people trying to solve that problem in esports. So, we found a tournament platform that we thought had an advantage over others and invested in that one. So it's less about diligencing what you guys might think as the financials or a certain your pitch deck. Your pitch deck's kind of important, but it really comes down to the idea and the person and where you're going about the space. And what we specifically invest in is what I call infrastructure around the space. We're not going to invest in a team. There's a lot of guys, especially some here in Dallas, that are putting a lot of money into teams, and I think that sounds great. It sounds like a lot of fun. It's a domain knowledge grab. It's a smart move that I think you can leverage into knowledge around other startups that you should be investing in, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. But you look at team investing. You look at when I looked at this rugby league that's launching. I talked to guys I'm in a couple deals with Mark Cuban, so I've talked to a lot of guys about sports leagues. It's a long-term investment. As a venture capitalist, I'm trying to make 10 to 100x in 5 to 7 years. And I don't think that I could monetize that kind of return in a team. But I think some of the teams, these guys are going to be worth $1 billion one day, easily worth $1 billion one day. No question in my mind whatsoever. So, what am I just kind of talked in circles a lot, but it's not that cut and dry. There's no diligence checklist. I hear a lot of venture capitalists talking about, I have a checklist, fill out this form, let me check all these boxes. I think that's trash. It really comes down to how I feel about the person and the idea and where exactly in the ecosystem they're trying to attack. And when I say infrastructure, I mean, how do I get better at playing a certain game? How do I make my playing experience better? How do I build community? How do I bring people together? Those are the things that I'm investing in the esports space.
One last question, and this is a softball. You've traveled the country, and I know you focus some efforts on the West Coast. but have you seen any jump out in front leader, citywide, statewide, area-wise, in eSports, who's really planted the flag and said, we want this to be the home?
I would say if I had to make a bet, I'd say Santa Monica is probably the US home of esports. I'd say New York is another sort of home to esports, but it's really up for grabs, you know? And I think what you guys are doing here, making Frisco a hub of esports, Frisco has an advantage over almost every other city. I think Santa Monica has more investment dollars and more startups, and they have Riot, and they have publishers, they have all kinds of stuff. It might be hard for Frisco to catch Santa Monica, but look, there's no reason why Frisco can't also be a major hub, and frankly, where we're located, you can fly anywhere in the world to this city. You can fly anywhere in the world to 20 minutes from here direct, and you can host tournaments here. Frisco is ideally positioned to be a major hub. So I think it's really going to be a competition between Frisco and Santa Monica, in my opinion.
You like that?
Frisco will be the hub for esports.
He said that it's going to happen, just so you know. I mean, what a lot of guys here don't understand is, and I'm a huge fan of esports, and I just being here with someone from OpTic is super rad for me. And like those of you who don't understand or know a lot about esports, I mean, these guys are the New England Patriots, the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, these guys are the Michael Jordan of esports. And I mean, when you go to a competition, these guys might not even be playing until an afternoon game. Half the crowd's wearing a green shirt or a black and green shirt. It's just phenomenal what these guys have built, to be honest.
Great, thank you. Gary. So as we're kind of walking through, as you can see, Gary obviously the representation and the director of SMU and the Guild Hall. We'd love to just hear the story, where you started. I'm sure people said you're crazy. Is there really a curriculum to be built around this? And what in the world kind of jobs that these people have at the end of this road? And I know you've proven those critics wrong, so kind of start at the beginning and walk us through your journey and putting this all together and kind of some of the success stories you've seen over the last few months.
Well, when we announced we'd have a degree in video game development, the then popular Jay Leno had a joke in his monologue that we just announced the only degree that is less valuable than political science. Yeah. So, in terms of the story, we started with a very generous gift from Mitch and Linda Hart, and they came to SMU and said, we want you, as alumni, to create a program that nobody else has. We want something that is unique and innovative and really forward-looking. And so, I wasn't there at the time, but we started looking around, and one of the facts that is not well known, people often, when they think of Texas and game development, they think of Austin. Austin has a great marketing program. But the reality is some of the best developers are right here in Dallas. With id being here, I think it's fair to say we were one of the birthplaces of the video game industry. We just need to tell a better story about that. And so as we were looking around, we had a number of companies come to us, video game developers, and say, capital is easy, talented developers is hard. Can you help us solve that problem? We said, well, that sounds like a problem that academia can solve. And so we have a number of things that make us unique. We decided, instead of taking faculty that happen to like games, that we would go into the game industry and find developers who have the degrees the university liked for our faculty. We put together a program that had all 4 disciplines, which is unique. We have designers, programmers, artists, and producers. And we work in the style and the pace of the industry. So we're on our 27th cohort. Over time, we typically place 85% of our students within 6 months. If you look at any major studio or any major game, it is very likely that one of our alumni is on it. You can go see that on our website, just page after page after page of games. And so it's been quite a ride, but been fun.
So could you talk a little bit more, obviously locally Frisco, about your Gearbox relationship and that big success story that just came out recently?
Absolutely. So a little bit of context. One of the things about developing video games, it is really much more like playing in a symphony than it is singing solo. And there are two things any game developer needs to be successful. One is they need their skill, but they also need to know how to work in teams. Modern games like League of Legends or Call of Duty, hundreds of people work on this. You think, how do you get 200-300 people who are creative geniuses all to have the same vision and make it coherent? That's a trick, that's hard. And so at the Guild Hall, we work really hard at training not only the individual skills, the specialization skills, but how to work together in teams. And as part of that, students come in each of the 4 disciplines, and they're in a team of 4, they're in a team of 8, and then they do a capstone that lasts a year, team of 16. One of the games that we recently did in the capstone is called Mouse Playhouse. It's a VR game. You can download it on Steam. Please do, it's a lot of fun. And they were getting ready to graduate this last May. And one of the local studios that has been a great resource for us is Gearbox. We love them, they love us. Is Randy Pitchford, the CEO, was over visiting. I'm not sure exactly what actually started the meeting. And we said, hey, let us show you our latest student capstone, this VR game. He was there with one of their producers. They jumped in, immediately got it, saw it was a lot of fun. Long story short, they said, you know what? We want to do a VR game. We need a team. We want to hire the whole team, all 16 of them. And like a bad TV movie said, I said, because the team is where the value is for us. We don't want just 1 or 2. We want the whole team or nobody. So we had students, going to the Holy Grail and asking, well, do we all go or not? They did. It's unannounced. I can't say what it is. But so far, everyone seems very happy.
All right, last but not least, Scott. So one of the things that for the newbies to esports that I think is the challenge is kind of the regulatory framework around the industry. There's certainly not a governing organization. If you're sports fans and you understand that FIFA controls soccer on a global level, they're kind of the place we can go and whine and complain. They're the places that kind of play the mediator and keep all the countries happy, the teams happy. Or as the NFL or the NBA are good examples where there's a kind of a governing body to try to keep the owners and the teams and the sponsors and the players kind of all on the same page, hopefully. So maybe enlighten us a little bit about some of those challenges. If you're seeing any trends where maybe an organization is coming to the forefront, or what you're hearing out there as far as more of a global organization opportunity or a regulatory body that could be created or should be created.
Yeah, I think the problem with esports that a lot of people have difficulty understanding is that it's not like traditional sports. So you can't have, I don't think you'll see a world governing body. I think the trend is going to be to probably have governing bodies, based off of the games or, the leagues. I like that the NBA got involved. Maybe the NBA kind of transfers their governing body to that development. That's a nice first step. But I think esports is, there's so many legal intricacies with it because it brings up a lot of different issues. You have IP issues that come about. You take Riot Games, for example, they own the IP, and now they have the Players Association that throws in there, and they're controlling the Players Association. Well, they can ban a person from the game and the league in itself, but you don't have that in like an NBA. They can't ban you from playing basketball. So I think there's little nuances with esports that makes it a lot different than the traditional sports gaming. So I think it's going to take some time for the regulatory to develop. There are so many different governing bodies that pop up that claim they're the world governing body of esports. So you have in Britain, and then you have in France, you have so many secular ones that just pop up and say, I'm going to govern everything, but you don't have the team signed on. So, what if you have different teams in one league? Some support one organization, others support another one. So you have difficulties there. It would be nice, I think, if the teams got together and figured something out. I think that would be, I think it has to come from the ground up. I don't think you can go from the developer side or the league side and come down. I think you have to have the players and the teams come up, but I think, the talk is making the players employees. Because you have those other labor laws, and in the US you have to be an employee to form a union. So there's a lot of different legal aspects that you have to look at when you develop a regulatory side. It's just, I think right now you have too many things, and it's so big that I think everybody's trying to grasp around it. But I really think it, and what we're seeing is it has to come from the ground up.
So last question is around Berry Act, that is actually based in Las Vegas. I know there's been some updated legislation around how's the betting world going to play in gaming? Is it a game of skill? Is it a game of chance? What's fair? How do you regulate somebody that's playing something on a computer that is really being tainted? So can you talk a little bit about the betting landscape and kind of where you and your partner are playing and seeing, and kind of maybe give us a little vision of the future as it relates to esports betting?
Betting is it's kind of what got me into the field. So I had met my business partner, Steve Crystal. He was a casino, young casino out in Vegas, and he had done a lot of gaming industry deals. Big investor. He's invested in eSports and Penta over in Germany. But that gaming side was kind of appealing when we first started into it. And the betting, betting is we've done a lot of legal things lately. PayPal's asking some of our platforms to do legal opinions on why having a tournament is not sports betting. So that, the issues that we're seeing a lot of are the platforms that are controlling the tournaments, like a UMG. Are they? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out the words here. Are they? I'm drawing a blank, but where we're seeing things pop up in the gambling aspect is more regulatory market, and like the PayPal platform saying, hey, are you guys a game of skill, or are you perpetuating a game of chance or skill? And so we're having to go in on a state-by-state basis to say, in this state, yes, in this state, no. And the problem is you have different countries that have different gaming laws. So in Canada, they may have a game of chance or a game of skill is something different than what is seen in the U.S. The other thing in the U.S. is right now it's not regulated on a state-by-state basis. They see it as a federal gaming basis. But you have the Christie v. NCAA case that's coming before the Supreme Court. So we'll see some changes in that. Hopefully we'll get a decision on that. What we're seeing is that's going to go back to the states to be able to regulate gaming on a state-by-state basis, which is just going to complicate it because you're not going to have one governing body that's going to be able to say, okay, all of you have to do this. And then you have different challenges coming in on skin betting. That raises IP issues because we're having some developers say, well, it's a virtual item. I own the item because that's my IP. Well, can you bet it? Can people bet it? You don't know because there's no statute and there's no case law supporting it. So there's been 2 cases that have actually dealt with that virtual item in skin betting, but those were settled out of court, so we don't have a court decision on those. So the gaming aspect is going to be interesting, but I think we really need to wait for the Supreme Court to rule on that to kind of help govern the U.S. side.
Thank you. So now we'll open it up to the floor. Any questions? One thing I would like is if you keep the microphone until the answer, because you may have a follow-up question. So go ahead and hold on that microphone until you're completely done.
Perfect, and tell everyone your name as well.
Okay. Hi, my name is Nikki Harper, and I guess I'll stand up. My name is Vicki Harper. I'm sales manager for the Holiday Inn in the Colony. And I just want to know with eSports coming to Frisco, how is that going to impact on the hotels here?
Legitimate question.
Well, Ryan.
Make sure you have enough rooms. Yeah, build more rooms, buy, extend, no. So to give you an example, we, within a 2-week period, we had an event with Brisk at a Topgolf. And we invited all of our fans in the Chicago area, Naperville specifically, and said, come out and watch us record one of our content pieces. You get to see how it's all done from start to finish. Within 7 days of that announcement, we had about 700 people registered. Now, to give you in terms of context what that means, when an esports event is announced, it's usually within 90 days or more before the actual event is announced, right? Or it's usually within 90 days, and then the event will actually take place. So in terms of thinking through room vacancy and all that, that's something to keep in mind. And the Call of Duty events traditionally do anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people. The much larger events are going to fill out a soccer-sized stadium, right? So it's large. It just depends on what events and what vertical we bring into the space.
My second and last question is, with the eSports, are you brand preferred?
Say that again?
Like, is there a certain brand that you prefer?
You can sell a sponsorship.
Yes and no, I guess. It's largely going to depend on the category, so.
You guys should partner with Brian and Nahid because they're going to host events here. We're going to help sponsor them. There's going to be a lot of people coming to town, and you guys are right down the street. So
We met at the Texas Legends breakfast stuff in the morning, so we're working on that.
okay, excellent.
Damon Bryant, MDR, we specialize in sports and analytics. As you see in traditional sports like baseball with the Moneyball analytics and basketball with the Moneyball analytics and soccer Moneyball analytics, to what degree do you see in terms of assessment and recruiting and bringing in players that potentially having an impact in your area? Do you see something like that happening now?
Player recruitment is unique right now in esports because you really have to, well, I guess let me start here. It's dominantly driven by the professionals that you already have on your team. So they know who's up and coming, they know who works well in terms of their chemistry. There's not a lot of data that goes into that. So I think when you look at the academy level, who are the up-and-comers, who are people that are going to plug into space and within 2 to 3 years are going to be exceptional stars in their respective esport, that's where analytics are going to come in. And we need to see more of that in the space. I think it's wide open right now for someone to really take charge and own a big portion of that category.
Great, thanks.
Hi, my name's Joshua Wellington. I'm with Push RI. We're a digital agency, and I was just curious, how important is content marketing in all of your guys' opinions to esports? It's getting big. There's major investments, but for OpTic, how important is it for your players to constantly putting out that content and growing your social media audiences?
It's mission critical. It's a part of their DNA, and it has to be from day one. To give context, League of Legends, which is the largest esport in the world, has about 101 million active users per month. Call of Duty, which is our bread and butter, where we grew up in the space, has roughly 15 million plus per month. So we as an organization did not start out in esports. We started out in content. We did that on purpose because when we build a brand, the audience tends to follow, right? If that brand has built a following. So we built a content company first and then backed into esports, and that's why we have a following that can rival, at least on Twitter, the Dallas Cowboys. So telling that story and being part of that narrative every single day where someone can tune in on their mobile device, at home, right? It's no longer a linear experience. It's completely accessible. It is absolutely critical to building the brands that you have. And in light of that, we were the team that introduced Chipotle to the space. They had never been a part of it. We're the team that introduced Brisk to the space. Brisk is owned by Pepsi. So you'll see how important that is as you start to build your brand and seed yourself into different types of sponsorships. So very, very important. Anyone else want to answer that?
I'm going to check one. So Gary, for all of the young people now, and anyone thinking about switching your career, if you have someone kind of in your program come to you and say, I have an interest in esports, how do you sort of direct them, or where are you seeing the opportunities? Is it still kind of just traditional go work for a developer like Gearbox, or is it you're seeing people who are potentially interested in the business side now that they understand the technical side?
So I'll ask, as a player or as a developer?
Your choice.
My choice. Well, so we train developers. Most of us are amateur esports players. It's interesting to me, often the comparison is made with traditional sports and esports. What's interesting to me is the ways that they're different. And so while we are fans, and we have many of our students who study esports, we talked earlier about analytics, what analytics are important, what should we look at. A very interesting master's thesis one of our students just put out, asked the question, why do people watch esports? Is it different than the reason people watch traditional sports? So those are interesting questions in esports that we pursue more as academics, if you will. The other side of that question is, I want to make games. And if I'm younger, my first thing is to realize that the act of playing games is very different from the act of making games. And just because you're good and enjoy one doesn't mean you're good and enjoy the other. But if you do like making games, it is a great career, but it takes, just like other careers, it's hard. Back when I started making games, you could really start with no experience, but games have become complex enough and difficult enough that you need education.
And then Ryan, I'll ask you a little follow-up. What does sort of the back office track look like for OpTic, or how do you see that developing within your organization?
The back office in terms of?
So it's sort of like how traditional, let's throw out Dallas Cowboys. Like you have people who start off, come in as an intern, work their way up in finance or marketing, and you gradually kind of take on more senior leadership. Obviously, kind of being a new organization, you may not need that yet, but obviously looking ahead, how do you see that potentially developing?
Well, the way it's developing now is really just hands-on experience. It's straight up. We need to make sure that we're curating from the bottom up those individuals who are getting those business degrees, the management degrees, the degrees that Gary's team is helping perpetuate. Recruitment for us is nonstop, and development for us is nonstop. So that process has already started.
Mike Sanders, International Game Developers Association. One of the things you all had talked about was a monetization problem, where NPA is doing $15 where you guys are doing $2. What is the barrier that you're running into with monetization?
Yeah, it's really interesting. The people that are trying to monetize the space first are advertisers. So it's brands, right? And the 18 to 25-year-old demographic in the esports space is notoriously resistant to marketing. They pride themselves on sort of being a little standoffish. The Coca-Cola brand did this thing, so I'm not drinking that because you're telling me to drink it. So attacking that space, the first dollars in to try to monetize are coming from advertisers. What's going on now, and what's going on in the world where I'm investing, is people are building businesses around making your experience better, making you better at playing the game, making you better at whatever it may be. The technology to bring us all together and to allow us to do that online, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's virtual reality, whether it's some sort of cloud computing capability, or whether it's graphical processing, databases, whatever it may be, those technologies have just come online to allow businesses to create businesses that let players get better remotely, or let you train someone remotely, or let you gather API data from Riot remotely. So it's really a timing thing. The technology hasn't existed in the past to allow monetization of the players the way that I think makes the most sense. Now that technology is coming around, actually what I'm seeing and what we're investing in a lot of is in the esports space, there's a lot of technology being built around doing that. that's actually applicable commercially outside of esports. And so I think the high-level theme is that in the past, people tried to take technology that applies elsewhere and apply it to esports, but now there's technology being built in esports that's cutting edge and being applied elsewhere. And one of the companies we're in, to give you a monetization example, takes your gaming traffic and lifts it off of your internet service provider and puts it on a virtual private network, finds the most optimized route for that data to travel to a game server, and then reroutes that data that direction. That is a technology that is applicable to high-frequency traders, to anybody who needs a fast connection. So, I think I kind of talked around the answer a little bit, but I think technology is now allowing it, and you'll start to see it a lot more commercially available. It's just been really hard to monetize the person that works a 9 to 5 and comes home and plays 2 to 3 hours of video games, other than buying the game on Steam and buying a couple of skins and maybe occasionally showing up to an event watching these guys. But now there's more ways out to monetize them.
The Supreme Court is going to have an influence, but I actually think the associations, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and the banks that do credit card transactions are also going to have a big impact whether or not the gambling is going to be allowed. Thank you.
Hi there, Jim Shea from the University of Texas at Arlington. I have a question about how we have a couple folks here who actually are gamers on the administration, but I'm curious how you see ways that you can leverage the various North Texas educational institutions in terms of promoting esports in the region. We have an incredibly active club. We've been in conversations with UNT recently, with several of the other campuses, so I'm just curious about ways to do that. And this is more around the playing of the games than it is around the development of it. I think SMU's product is unique for the region and probably won't be replicated, but the actual gamers themselves at the campuses.
Well, I know you left me out, but I'm going to just jump in a little bit. One of the things that I think that is great about this region is that we have the whole ecosystem. That we have the educational piece, we have the developer piece, we have the player piece, and they all feed off of each other, and that is unique.
Real quick, I have several portfolio companies that would love to partner with your players for free and work with them to help them get better, to help them play with other people, to help them participate in tournaments. I mean, I would love to personally engage with your group and then find the right way for our companies to be helpful.
Great question. In addition to data, one of the most underserved portions of the community is the idea of how you grow and curate and grow more academy type players. So one of our business ventures is to hyper-focus on that. What does it look like to have the Pop Warner of esports? What does it look like to be at the collegiate level working with your colleagues that are here? What does it look like to have the recreational side of it? So I think really what it means is coming to the table and discussing how we start executing and building and curating community within the various universities across the board. We've done that at a vertical level with inside respective esports, and I think it's very transferable as strategies and tactics to bring it over into what's happening at the collegiate level.
Hello, everybody. My name is Khaled Ramadan from the Novice Collective. I have a question actually for my little brother, who's 14 years old. He has his own team, and he's went from a player sort of to a brand manager because I'm a creative director, so it runs in the family. But his question was, how would an amateur organization grow and stay active with the change of technology today?
A little bit. What does he mean by, which technology is he referring to? Streaming?
So he has a brand, and I'm pretty sure he's interested in growing that brand, but he's from a small town in Dallas. So
He's a streamer, right?
Well, he's the brand manager for players, and he records them, of course, and
But they're
uploads,
streamers.
etc.
Basically, they're streamers.
I would assume.
Well, that's a great question. We get questions like that a lot. What editing software should I use? What broadcasting software should I use? The trick is you don't have to go with the brand names. Most of the software will accomplish exactly what you want it to do, and that's put your face on a camera along with your gameplay on the screen. And so for him, it's not so much about having the best equipment as it is about telling the story, building rapport, and being active and consistent with your content. So if he is a streamer, please tell him this very specifically. Stream every day, stream at a very specific time, and build rapport with your audience, whether you have one person in the room or 1 million people in the room. Just treat it as if you have an audience present, and he will naturally grow over time. It's a slow burn process, right? It's much more competitive out there these days, but it is doable if someone is consistent, if they're engaging, and if they are telling a story in terms of their content.
One thing to add there too, a number of my friends are streamers, and I've seen them grow their followings from 10 people a night to 300 people a night to several thousand people a day. And what I would tell you is it's just like any other business. He needs to go out and network with other streamers, or his team, his players do, and they need to host each other. He needs to build a community around himself with other streamers as well. And it's really easy to do. I mean, just go to TwitchCon in a couple weeks and his business will be set.
For sure, thank you.
Hi, I'm Marla Rowe. I'm with Visit Frisco, and our team was the one that launched the Sports City USA initiative. So this isn't so much a question as maybe a pitch. When we launched the Sports City USA initiative, at the same time we did a very soft launch of eSports City USA, just because we've had the opportunity to be in meetings with Chris and with Monty and Randy and a lot of other groups, and we just feel like Frisco is poised, as you said, to be a location for eSports City. So if you go to our website right now and you look at that, there's one company listed called Gearbox. So I guess we would issue a challenge back is help us build that eSports City here in Frisco. And if Santa Monica has set a bar, we want to look at what that bar is and then exceed it. So we're open for business here. We have really understood a lot about events and how your teams work and how the events work. And I would just tell you that we're very excited about doing business with each of you.
I would love to partner with you to find a way to bring some of our companies here. So it's a lot easier for me to manage board meetings when I can take a 3-mile Uber.
Thank you.
Awesome. My name is Danny Martin. I'm a co-founder and founder of eLeads. And so my question right now, I built a platform that allows individuals to host tournaments. And one of the biggest things is I wanted to focus in on, like you stated, there's money everywhere, but that's not I wish there was money everywhere. And so one of the biggest aspects for me was to try to develop a team that brings exposure to the site that I've actually built from an application development perspective. So for your question, one of the biggest aspects is contracts and trying to get these players to be able to really buy into the system, while at the same sense, as a business, you don't want to spend a lot of your own capital and lose it because players can go all over the place. What is the best resource to build the best contract to get these individuals engaged into what you're actually trying to build?
I don't necessarily think there's one best contract. I think it's all dependent on the circumstance. We've seen a rise in smart contracts. They're easily executable. They benefit both sides. I think that where we ran into a lot of issues initially was, between teams and players. They would show up for an event and things would get changed, sponsorship, or teams would, be it their manager or something, would change the terms of the deal. The nice thing about smart contracts is they're completely independent. It's like one of my colleagues, Joe Klimko, refers to it as an online escrow that neither party has a chance to control. So, that's the biggest thing, is keeping that independent, and especially if you're trying to engage new teams, you don't want to have so much control of the contract that they don't want to enter it because they don't know you. There's a trust factor that you have to build up, and if you're willing to take on these new technologies like use smart contracts, that's something that people can get on board with. But I think in every space, you still have to build that trust with different teams, and no matter the terms or anything, like I said, there's not one contract that's written, a variety of different contracts with a variety of different terms. It's just, depending on the circumstance, but, you know, you need to build that trust relationship. And the nice thing is you can make that done with a, you know, a smart contract will allow them to build that trust, because they know they're gonna get paid for performance. They know you're gonna honor the contract immediately, so. And I think, you know, OpTic probably has seen it a lot with different contracts. You've gone through a series of contracts. So, Bryce Bloom had started some of the first eSports contracts, and I think everybody's kind of taken from that and developed it as time's gone on. But, you know, there's not one that will make a difference. It's just trying to get teams onto that platform, but you have to build that trust. I think it's more of a relationship factor rather than the type of contract.
Thank you.
And I probably just lost an hourly rate there, but.
It's okay. Thank you so much. We both trying to work.
Just real quick. So Ryan, what do your contracts with your players look like? So this is a follow-up question here. And what are some of the general terms you're willing to share? Are they on salaries? Do they share in the streaming revenue? Do they get some of the brand money? How do they get compensated? What are some of the general terms?
Yeah, great question that corresponds really well to what you're asking. Quick caveat, don't ask that question first. I think really, so you're a tournament website, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
the tournament website, you've got to compete with game battles, you have to compete with PvP Live, you have to compete with a bunch of other stuff. Focus on the differentiator, right? You know, there's a lot of betting in esports that happens between amateur player and pro player, right? The wagers, I'm sure you've heard of those with UMG and all that, kind of as you quoted. So focus on that aspect first and exploit that. In terms of contract, to answer your questions, they're on monthly salaries. They need to perform X number of objectives as it relates to sponsorship deliverables. That could be tweets, it could be streams, it could be YouTube videos that they must hit in order to either prevent a fine, right? More so to keep the business happy and the cash flow inbound and the sponsors happy and renewing. So for you, what are the important metrics, right? For you as an early stage person, maybe it's not so much about monthly active users as it is about a referral program from one esports team bringing on another esports team and that snowball effect, right? So I can meet with you after and discuss some of the stuff that I've seen, but focus more on audience building first and just make your contracts very clear. You're getting paid for this to hit this number because that number is important to your metric and overall business growth. So
Notated. Thanks.
I'm going to keep it with this sort of general legal discussion. Do you think, like, let's take, for example, Korea in 2007, where StarCraft really burst on the scene and kind of also found itself in a lot of hot water with match fixing. Is it going to take something like that here for a lot of these kind of, I guess, contract issues or legal caseload to get established or to force some type of organization like TESPA that gets a little bit more respect and standardization, or do you guys kind of all see it just happening organically because it is kind of it's emerging, it's a powerful industry, but not wanting to necessarily get caught with your hand in the cookie jar?
I think it's going to develop organically. I think you have, with a lot of teams, I think you have them wanting to grow the industry. I don't think you want them to have that black eye. So I think they're willing to, a lot of teams I think are willing to essentially self-regulate themselves. And that's what we've seen from some of the teams and the platforms that we represent is, they want to go the extra mile to make sure that they're running a legit business, that they are, there's no question of match fixing, there's no question of doping. I think everybody involved in the space right now, knowing that there aren't these rules in place, you're starting to see them self-regulate as much as possible and basically call people out on it and say, you're doing this or you're doing this, and making sure that everybody's adhering to the same standards of conduct. Because I think you've seen, even with traditional sports, you've seen so many of these traditional sports have these black eyes that it takes them a while to get back. Esports is such a niche industry, or started as a niche industry, is now exploding, but they don't want that that black eye to start. It's now gaining traction. The worst thing it can do is have that black eye. And so I think you're seeing a lot of teams making sure that they are self-regulating enough. So I think you're going to see it grow organically.
Hi, Jules Clark, Dallas Innovates. My question is for you. Hey, how you doing? So you just recently decided that y'all are gonna move to Dallas. Like, this is the move for y'all. So what makes Dallas better than Santa Monica?
The only reason Santa Monica has attention right now is because more teams live there in the U.S. than any other thing. Santa Monica is not coming out and supporting these teams. Santa Monica is not rolling out the red carpet, or however you want to phrase that, right? It's just that you have the entertainment capital of the world in LA, and Santa Monica is kind of getting the splash damage good effects of that. It's not until a team like OpTic working with professionals that are up here, or LaunchPad City, or the FEDC, or people like Chris Cheney who come into the space and want to shake up the model, where you're going to see more of that capitalization come in. So the Metro Atlanta, we've been courted by them, and Detroit as well. So for us, it's more about saying we just want to plant the flag for having the number one, the utopia, the eSports campus destination of the world. You're going to have content, player development, pro player events, you name it, right? So they're just lucky is what it is. And I mean that in a great way. I used to live in Santa Monica, so I don't mean that.
A lot of the investors just happen to be there. March Capital Partners, Bitcraft, Science Inc., a lot of folks that are putting money into the space just happen to be there. But what I would say is there's a lot of money coming into the esports space from this area as well. There's no reason why, if Frisco makes an effort, that it can't be the capital of esports.
I think one other thing on that, what makes Texas so unique is that, with taxes, as more money is thrown into the industry, you're going to have more of these players and more of these teams looking at the tax issues and the regulatory issues. And compared to California, Texas is by far a lot better than that. So I think you're going to see a lot more investors, a lot more teams come from this area. And I think it's going to be adherence to taxes and regulatory.
So I actually have a question, and this is one that's open in my mind. Traditional sports, you say a major market can support one pro team per sport. Do you think that's true in esports, and why or why not?
The question is, how many esports can we support?
Yeah, or do you think your being here would prevent other teams from coming?
I think we definitely provide a challenge. We're the most followed esports team on the planet, and we did that because of what I mentioned earlier about backing into content. So it does provide a great situation for their audience to be shared with our audience. So if you think of show matches in an off-season period where another team is traveling here to play our team, if you think about those big tentpole announcements, those content initiatives, I think it actually provides more of an opportunity for them to come and participate in Frisco, especially if Frisco and the surrounding companies like LaunchPad City are providing an avenue to make that happen. And we should be very open and non-exclusive to that in order to grow and fuel the industry. It's not just about us, OpTic Gaming, it's about the greater industry as a whole, as well as the surrounding ecosystem. We cannot lose sight of that as the industry is being pioneered right now. So that's a great question.
On the geography front, sorry, I have a question. On the geography front, what do you think about the way the Overwatch League has sort of said we're going to make this a regional thing? It's going to be the Houston team versus the Dallas Austin team versus the LA team. Do you think that bringing geography in esports is a good idea or not?
Geography is already there. One thing that we were really concerned about in this is, are we alienating our global audience, right? And I think there's ways to spin it to ensure that you're not. So given that it's never done before, I can't give a very comprehensive answer. I do see it as a benefit to onboarding more fans within a local area, and I think it lends more to opportunities such as what you asked about the collegiate level to be able to participate and open up new partnerships that may start locally, but ultimately open up to being, nationally and internationally across the board. So again, great question, one that we wrestled with in our head, but ultimately one we feel comfortable with, knowing what it means for the greater infrastructure of esports.
One of the things I love about the space is that there aren't really borders. There is no, it's an international sport. It's an international phenomenon. you can actually go to esports to do what traditional sports used to provide, which is escape from all of the drama and politics of what everything else is out there. And I like the borderless aspect of esports.
I have one follow-up question. This is my last question, I promise. My question is this, so is there something that you could all agree on that you think is going to be the next tech invention for esports, like Twitch was? Twitch blew up. Everybody was like, we're influencers now in the esports world because of Twitch. Is there something like that about to come out?
I hope not. I mean, I think if we all agree on a technology that's going to be next, I screwed up and am not doing my job well. But Ryan, what do you think?
Blockchain.
I think the spectator side of it has a very unique play. Virtual reality is coming into the space, augmented reality is coming into the space, augmented reality being not everything is virtual, but if I'm looking at you through contacts, I can see your gamer stats above your head, right? So if you think about the spectator side of things, right now we just watch on TV in the same way you watch traditional sports. But if virtual reality is being added in and you consider wearables and technology, why can't I be watching the game inside the game from my couch? Meaning, why can't I put on a Oculus headset and watch my favorite player as he goes and interacts with other players across the screen, whether that's building up a score streak or putting a big ball into the back of the net. I think there is a lot of room to see what happens with the spectator side of it as well.
And along that thread, one of the areas that I think is going to create a lot of opportunity is on the streaming side. The way we watch esports competitions is the way we will eventually watch traditional sports competitions. There's no reason why I should have to turn on, when I turn on the football national title game, the NCAA game, I've got to flip between 5 different channels to get the coach cam, the quarterback cam, that's an archaic 20th century way of watching something, anything, any kind of competition. When we watch a PUBG tournament at Gamescom, or when we watch these guys on stage playing Call of Duty or something like that, there's so many ways for me to view that competition. I can watch the map, I can watch one player, there's a number of ways to watch it. And that diving into the experience and being able to watch from the inside out is the future of watching all live entertainment in my opinion, and the technologies that facilitate that will be probably built in esports. I'm seeing it now, and they will then grow out of esports and go to other places as well.
So I will agree with both. VR, yes. Interactive viewing. I think one of the interesting things is I love this, but the truth is, unless I'm a league player, I'm never going to understand watching a league match. And I can go down all of these. It is a bit mythical, but that esport, which I can explain in 15 minutes to my partner, they can sit down and watch with me and enjoy it even though they don't play, I think that will transform.
I agree, the VR and the augmented reality, I think that's where the next big tech push is going to be on this.
Hello, Harley Barnes. I organize music festivals, but this is my fourth company. I was in the music tech space and now we're getting into physical events. And so this year we're doing a skateboarding and music festival, kind of a boutique festival, about 3,000 to 5,000 people. And then next year we're expanding into 3 to 4 markets with the same concept. One of our partners for next year is T-Mobile. They already have a lot of sponsorship in the esports space, and they're really new to action sports, so we're helping them get there. But they're kind of coming to us and saying, how can we integrate esports, whether it's having a Tony Hawk Pro Skater tournament or something in our events as we scale up next year. So we're really looking for partners in that, and my question to you, as we produce events, some of my partners do huge stadium hip-hop festivals, biggest hip-hop festival in the world, actually. So we're kind of wondering what that event outlook for Dallas, Fort Worth looks like, and for the United States, and what are the needs there. Of course, in Europe, there are like giant, stadium-sized things, and I guess we're kind of new getting into that. Are there those stadium-sized arena-type events happening in the United States? Is there a need for more of them? And how can companies and then, like, my team of investors get involved in those?
Get with Brian and Nahid, and you guys go talk to Blue Star and find a way to host a tournament over here in this football stadium. If that doesn't happen in the next 12 months, and City of Frisco as well, I can't, I would bang my head against the wall. So that has to happen, and why don't you just put it together and do it, because no one's doing it?
Yeah.
It is happening.
Oh, great, awesome. Sorry, I misspoke then. I'm just ill-informed.
I second everything that you just said. Just start. Let's start. Frisco can be the esports capital of the world. You have to say yes right now, and that's it. And we're good.
This is going to be the last question. Sorry, we're running out of time, but.
My name is Anthony Morocco. I'm the NBA 2K manager and esports manager for the Dallas Mavericks. I work directly with Mark Cuban, helping him build out his general esports strategy. Just to go off of your point about Frisco becoming the esports capital of the world, and then your question about how does UT Austin get involved with esports world. Excuse me. I actually just moved to Texas within the past 4 months, so I'm getting used to it. So, the first thing that I said to our entire staff when I walked in is this specific portion of Texas is unlike any other place in the rest of the United States. There's a deep roots in everything video games, and we have a lot of tech innovation. We have OpTic Gaming moving here, which is amazing. Congratulations. We love to have you here. I am so excited personally. And the first thing that we kind of decided to do was to get in contact with the OpTic Gaming of the world, with business innovators of the world, with the SMUs of the world. And really what we're here to do now is to bring everyone together and bring esports and partner with everyone. And I guess my question is what does that ecosystem look like, everyone working together in a specific area, not just developers, not just a school, but also the major sport franchises, the major leaders in the area. What does that ecosystem look like, and how do we achieve it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think it starts with this room right here. I think we're at the front stages of it right now. You have individuals like LaunchPad City, organizations like LaunchPad City, individuals like yourself who want to be in the scene to help curate it. You have the investors, the educators, the lawyers, and we're all in a room right now, and we want to know how to best do that, right? I guess it goes back to what we were just saying, right? We just get started on it, and as we know, when we scale anything in any industry, there's a lot of cart before the horse, there's a lot of mess, there's a lot of pioneering that takes place, there's a lot of jungle that we need to kind of cut down a little bit, but it does lead to results. It does lead to research, development, process improvement. It does lead to analytics and development. I think that's where a lot of that comes from. It leads to involvement at the collegiate level, the questions that you posed. It involves teams like us expanding into new esports. So I guess I'm rambling a little bit, but my point is it takes this and then the follow-up and the execution with it. And I really don't know what it looks like beyond that, right? I think we're figuring that out as we speak.
Look, what I would say about that is I think that there's enough people with enough interest in the space in this room between Chris, between the city, between LaunchPad and us, OpTic and SMU and some great attorneys that look, why don't we as a room just decide that we're going to make Frisco, the esports capital of the world. Let's hold each other accountable. Let's work together. I've talked to Mark and Steven and Abe about esports, and I think it'd be great to have your organization even more involved, and I'll keep sending deals to Mark if he wants to do them. I mean, let's bring them here too. Let's make that part of the thing. Me and Mark lead a deal and say you have to come to Dallas if you want this money. Let's start doing that. So let's get it done, man. Let's just all hold each other accountable. Look, my email address is my name, Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, at my website at deepspacevc.com. If you send me an email with esports in the subject line, I will respond to you within 2 hours and we will talk about esports. I mean, it's not like any of us are not accessible, okay? Like, all I want to talk about is esports. So if you email me at 2 in the morning and I'm playing PUBG and I die early, which always happens, we're going to hang out. We're going to have a conversation, man. Let's get on Discord and play some games and talk about esports. I mean, let's just get together, guys.
Yeah, I got one last question to wrap it up. From your unique vantage points, what does this industry look like 5 years from now? 2026, forecast, put your vision hat up. Look at Korea 5 years ago.
More.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'd say there is I don't think that I want to be able to forecast it. I want it to be so unique and so different and so big and so not like traditional sports that we can't even really sit here and say what it's going to be yet. I think it's bigger than what Newzoo says it's going to be. I think it's going to be more. I think the folks that are out there saying, hey, we just need to take the traditional sports model and build all of the esports components that make it look like a traditional sports model, I don't like that idea. I think esports is going to be something bigger and more gnarly and crazier and just more interesting and more engaging than anything we can imagine. So if I had to tell you what I think it should look like in 5 years, I hope it's something I can't imagine, to be honest.
I'll give the answer that he hates. I think we're going to see a more difficult barrier to entry. I think we're going to see more franchising. I think we're going to see some of the tier 2 and 3 esports weeded out even more. I think it's going to be a much more competitive space. So if we want to be the capital of esports now, then let's do it now. But if we want to compete with Santa Monica, when Santa Monica decides to flip the on switch, then we can do it in 3 years. So I do see obviously a much more competitive landscape. I think that's inherent to what's happening. But I do hope that it still lends room to a lot of innovation, especially from the spectator side. We have like a blank canvas to really define this space in all aspects, analytics, player development, competition, sponsorships, business development, whatever that ecosystem is, we have quite an open canvas to do that.
I joke when I say more. To me, I take this back to the early days of the internet. Everyone knew the internet was going to be a big thing. Everyone knew it wasn't going to go away. The real question was, do you invest in pets.com or amazon.com? And I think that's a bit where we are now, or both.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Ryan. I think it's going to be a very competitive market. I mean, you're already starting to see a lot of the regulations come into play, and you're going to see some condensing as those player associations and leagues start kind of weeding things out. I think it's going to have a contraction, and then it's going to be less competitive to get in, or more competitive to get in the market. So I think you're going to have I think it's going to be bigger than what they think. I agree with Stephen on that. I think there's going to be more audience, especially as the spectator experience is enhanced with VR and augmented reality. But then you also have some cool technologies kind of popping out of it. You have a lot of blockchain coming in. So I mean, there's a lot of exciting times, but there's also a lot of unknowns. So it all depends on how much that regulatory side comes in and allows it to grow. I think regulation is a good thing to a certain point. I think it can stifle it if it gets too much. So I'm hoping that it grows organically and kind of holds on that regulatory side as long as possible. That way it can kind of blossom into a huge industry, a massive industry, I think bigger than traditional sports.
Well, with that, guys, on behalf of LaunchPad City and Frisco, I guess now the eSports City, I think we've all decided on that. Thank you guys so much for giving your time.